I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast, part of the 90 Min Football family. As ever, I'm your host, Harry Symeou, and we're back for our second episode of the day. I was only planning to do one, but typically, as soon as I finished that podcast, a load more updates started to find their way through out into the world, causing meltdown, panic, whatever you want to call it, among the Arsenal fan base. And so I thought it best to sit down and discuss it, work our way through these updates, try and make sense of them. And I'm delighted to say that alongside me to do that, first up, Tom Canton from the Gooner Talk TV. Tom, how's it going, mate? Good to speak to you again.
Yeah, not bad. It's not bad. It's what a day. what a day. So yeah, loving it. Loving life.
It has been one of those days, hasn't it? And look, you can see it already in the comments. Kenny AFC, how are you going to defend this one? What is there to defend? We'll get into it in a minute. Also joining us, Sophie Nicolaou, the head honcho of the Highbury Squad podcast, and my fellow Cypriot. I mean, it's not like us to lose our rag, is it? Or be late for a podcast, but here we are.
It could be an oxymoron. I've titled myself today, The Calm in the Storm. Coming from a Greek person, it could be absolute horseshit. But let's try, shall we?
It could be absolute carnage. Okay, so earlier today, we spoke about the news that Arsenal had made an official bid for Declan Rice that was knocked back by West Ham United. Now, that's not completely uncommon to hear of a first bid being knocked back. I did say on the podcast earlier that although I understand that's kind of how negotiations work, that maybe Arsenal were putting in a bid to signal their intent that they were looking to move forward, etc., etc. But I did say that I felt that if what we heard earlier in the week was true, that all these conversations had been going on and that Arsenal were aware of what West Ham's demands were, etc., that maybe it was a little bit disrespectful to go and make the offer that they did. Now, I'll come to Sophie first on this. Do you agree with me in that sense? Do you think that given Arsenal know what it's going to take to get Declan Rice out of the club, that they should have been at least a little bit closer based on what we've heard to what West Ham's actual public demand seems to be?
I mean, one of the biggest pickles in the transfer market is a club's evaluation of what the selling club's evaluation is never on the same page, is it? And this is literally the first day or second day of the transfer window. And everyone will say, well, why hasn't this been done before? Why haven't we announced it today? It just doesn't work that way. Have we been disrespectful? I think there's PTSD here, right? From the Suarez plus £1 situation. But I also think that Arsenal deserve a little bit more credit in the transfer market based on what we've seen last summer and the summer before, and also this past January. Yes, you know, fans didn't think that we reloaded the way we should have with a striker, or we left ourselves short once again in midfield and at the back. And this is a ruthless, cyclical business that moves quickly, that has instant gratification on one side with the fans, and more of a methodical approach by our club in terms of how they want to do business in the transfer market. Now, if West Ham had accepted our first bid, what do you guys think the reaction would have been? Oh, look at us going in and overpaying.
Yeah.
Right? I think it's a good thing that they've rejected the first bid. Let's, you know, this is a business. And this part of football is truly about negotiation, and nothing happens overnight. So I don't think we've been disrespectful. I think we're trying to get away with what we think the value is, knowing that we're going to have to go up our game. When you guys want to go buy something, all right, and you go to the market and there's a scarf there for 50 quid, you're like, I ain't paying 50 quid for that. I'll offer you 40. You can haggle, right? But our club can't. Keep it in perspective. It's a process. I hate that word now, but it really is. So hold the mayo and don't throw the tomatoes just yet. It's too soon.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is Arsenal just opening that line of communication, saying, yes, we are seriously interested. I know the conversations have already taken place, but making it official by way of submitting an actual offer, even if they probably felt and believed that that offer was more than likely to be rejected. But Tom, what do you know to be the value of this offer? Because we've heard a number of conflicting figures. I've heard some say that in total it's worth £80 million. I've heard some say that it's 80 million plus a load of add-ons. Sky Sports have been reporting this afternoon that actually West Ham's asking price is 120 million, not the 100 million we heard earlier in the week, and that they'd accept 100 million if we were to offer a player as well. What do you believe to be the case with this? Because there is a lot of conflicting information doing the rounds.
Yeah, I mean, I can only go on what I've been told. And, you know, this morning when things were breaking, you know, David Ornstein initially reported the first bid. And then I think it was Alex Crook of TalkSport that initially reported that it had been rejected. So kind of reaching out, trying to get any information on it, was that it was an 80 million upfront kind of figure, or guaranteed, rather, not upfront, guaranteed figure. Now, my colleague Kai Karnak of Football London has reported that was apparently offered in 6 installments. So you're looking at, what's that, around 12 and a half-ish? My maths ain't great, but something like that.
A bit of afterpay. They hit the afterpay button.
Yeah, is it 13.3 reoccurring a season? I think it would be, if the 80 million is being split across.
Are we
6
shopping
seasons.
at West Ham, or are we shopping at DFS? 6 installments. That's madness.
I know. If that's, you know, and that's Kai's information, if that's true, of which, you know, Kai's got good connections, I can't fathom why on earth they thought that was sensible to go in with, you know, with that kind of figure. And then my understanding was, of the guaranteed, on top of the guaranteed 80 million, is that there was at least 10 million in add-ons on top of that. So I had a source say to me that it was 15, and a source say to me that it was 10. So, you know, you can say we can firmly agree that it's at least 10 million pounds that's been guaranteed in add-ons. But my other part of the understanding was that Arsenal's add-on structure is around them, you know, winning the Premier League and winning the Champions League, and West Ham want add-ons that are far more achievable than that in their minds. And I think it was James Cook that put out a reply to that, said, I don't know why West Ham kind of are against this, because, you know, surely that's what Arsenal are going to. And I pointed out, well, frankly, any club that's not Man City, any club that they're selling using those types of add-ons, have a reason to be a bit skeptical, because Man City exists, you know. So I can understand why West Ham are being somewhat skeptical about the idea of Arsenal including add-ons that are to win the Premier League or to win the Champions League, because whilst Man City exists, there's always, whoever there is on the back foot. You know, whoever it is second best to them, no matter who you are, at least second best. So I can understand the rhetoric, but yeah, the 6 installments idea is if true, is absolutely ridiculous, you know, from an Arsenal point of view, because why on earth would West Ham ever, you know, accept something like that? Now, I've said that, you know, the first offer is the first offer. You know, negotiations are like a poker game. You know, you're never going to see your first offer accepted, because it would be mad on the selling club's part to do that. But I do feel a little bit frustrated in the kind of, if you're having these talks, right, in my view, to not repeat the Mudryk situation, you have these talks to kind of come to an agreement about what the first offer really should go in to be as respectful as it can. I don't think that offer was, and I think, you know, if that's, I need to work out whether or not my aim is Edu, and I'll throw this to you guys. I need to work out if my aim should be towards Edu, or whether it should be towards the owners who are putting some kind of spending restriction on what we're able to offer, you know, West Ham. And I don't know the answer to that question myself. So maybe you guys can have a shot at it.
Go on, Soph. I'll let you take this one.
I guess, okay, the 6 installments thing is a little bush league, let's be honest, right? When you're seeing Chelsea make contracts for like 500 million years, maybe the landscape of football is also changing. You know, financials we're about to go into a global recession. You know, commercial real estate is going to pop at any point. There's a lot of factors that go into deciding how you structure a deal. Now, the Cronkies are richer than Roosevelt, and that's the issue fans have and will always have. Until they start putting their hand in their own pocket, fans are going to have an issue with how Arsenal Football Club run their transfer business. And maybe we should look around us and see what's happened to some teams who've dug deep into personal pockets and how reliant a business becomes on that. However, with that said, we always talk about transfer windows being really big and important. this is the one I think where the owners will truly be judged by. Because when you go that close to winning a Premier League and you're short and you know where you're short, and as a business person, you don't follow through, that's an issue. The question is, how much do they want to spend to follow through? Now, I'm not going to sit here and defend the Cronkies because I do that a lot and people don't like it. But I will say one thing is that patience has had to be learned by the Rams fans, by the Avalanche fans, by the Denver Nuggets fans. Colorado Rapids, we'll just park them for a minute. But patience has had to be lived by all of those fans. And don't come at me with the American sports is different. No, they're sports business owners, and they know how to win titles. And Arsenal fans are just going to have to continue to be a little bit patient. Now, that may not be the answer you want to hear, but I also think there's some fiscal responsibility here to not just go out and spend 120 million, because if Declan Rice was Italian or Spanish, would he be worth 120 million? No, he'd probably be worth 60 or 70. So there's a lot of different components and factors here. I think Arteta is like, just get me my guy. Edu's like, hold on a second. There are restrictions as to how we can get the guy. And then, you know, the Cronkies are, of course, heavily involved in that, as are the executive team. So I think it's a little bit of both, to answer your question, Tom.
I feel sorry for Edu because I think he'll be stuck in the middle of this. He'll have a manager who is on his case saying, this is the player I want. I don't really care about the ins and outs of it. I want you to get this deal done. I want you to get me Declan Rice from West Ham United and bring him over to Arsenal Football Club. And then you've got an owner who ultimately signs the checks, who will be saying to Edu, yeah, that's fine, mate, not a problem, but you got to do it within the constraints that we are working under. And I agree with Sophie in that football has changed a lot. And I think that this thing of installments is not as outrageous in 2023 as it would have been 3 or 4 seasons ago. And I guess if you're a club that are going to receive that type of payment, what you are doing is at least securing an investment or some funds incoming for over a long period of time, which means that you're kind of protected in that sense. But it doesn't always solve your problem with regards to replacing that player that you are losing in the short term. And so you can understand why West Ham would be put off by that. Maybe it is the norm nowadays, but if I'm West Ham and I'm losing Declan Rice, I'm allowing him to leave on the basis that I'm going to be able to rebuild my squad with the money that is coming in for him. And if I'm not going to see that money straight away, then why would I be on board with this? It's a really difficult one. It really, really is. I just find it really difficult to believe that, you know, what we heard over the last week, which was that all these conversations were happening and that there had been progress made, that then Arsenal would go in and make what many are describing as an embarrassing or derisory offer. Like, read the room if that is the case. And I've just put out a tweet a little while ago saying, you know, judging by the way someone here react to transfer reports, I do wonder how they get through life on a day-to-day basis without literally their heads exploding, because it's mad, it's crazy. But there is a bit of, I guess, there is something to being a little bit upset about this, or finding it, at least, Tom, a little bit confusing at this stage.
Yeah, I think, you know, sometimes I wonder how, you know, we end up producing content, you know, every single day on Arsenal, because it's a toll, like, it's such a toll with this club. And I think, you know, the visceral nature of the online fan base as well, you know, creates an extra element to it as well. And it's, I find myself often falling into the trap of feeling like I need to, like, convince almost everyone I speak to of kind of the way things are, you know, with Arsenal. And that, like, unfortunately, most people will believe almost everything that is being put out there. You know, and I don't think everything out there is accurate. And I think that certainly there are tactics, you know, used by clubs, used by agents, by intermediaries as tactics to try and panic clubs like Arsenal into bidding bigger. So bidding bigger, rather. That's a difficult couple of words to say. When it comes to the Man City interest that was, you know, published this morning, that's all West Ham. Like, that is all West Ham, like, putting out there that Man City are interested in Rice, because it suits them down to the ground to make it public. The Man City are coming in for Rice, because it's designed to to panic Arsenal into bidding, well over what they would probably be prepared to put in for Rice. I've just seen a report by Matt Law come out regarding Caicedo and Chelsea, suggesting that Brighton now want £120 million for Moises Caicedo. Like this is what is happening, and I don't really know where it ends either. Like I don't know where, because clubs like West Ham and Brighton have got a right to say, we want 120 million quid, because clubs like Chelsea have gone and paid that for Enzo Fernandez. That's the reality of it. So,
but also Rice is their biggest asset. He's their biggest asset,
and he's going to be for the next decade,
20 years, maybe.
Get a fee close to that for another one of their players. So they've got to make sure they get the maximum fee. For me, it's like, I can't necessarily be annoyed at Arsenal if we don't get Moises Caicedo and Declan Rice. Like, I can't be annoyed if we don't get both, because the two clubs that we're trying to buy from are asking for extortionate amounts of money for both players. Well, like, we offered 70 million quid for Caicedo in January for a guy that went for less than 5 million a year prior. Like, we put in a very respectable offer and were laughed away with it. £80 million plus 10. Yes, the structure of the deal is frankly laughable. But the amount of money we've put in for Declan Rice, if you think about what, for a player with, I think, 2 years left on his deal, has said he wants to go. West Ham have said that he can go, and I know they want to get the fee, but 90 million quid, if all add-ons are secured, is a lot of money. But it is still, I think, frustrating, and I think fans, the right that fans have to be frustrated about is, of course, the manner in which that first bid has seemingly gone in. That's where I do have the sympathy for the frustration, because the first bid is, a little bit silly. So yeah.
How much did Real Madrid pay for Rice, guys?
So it's
for Bellingham. For Bellingham,
£88 million guaranteed, I think, and then there's add-ons which could take it up to around £120 million, I think.
Right. So why can't we get Rice for 88 million, for example? I'm playing silly here, but I really want to know why can't we?
I think if we said to West Ham, here's £88 million all up front, and there's 10 million quid worth add-on. It's 12 million quid or 13 million quid, just to tip it over the 100 million that they desperately want Rice to go for. I think if we paid it up front, I think they'd be very open to that. In fact, I'm led to believe that's the case, that if we paid a lot of, like, say, close to 90 million up front, then they would accept it with minimal add-ons.
I think you've got to take into consideration the Premier League tax as well. Going from Dortmund to Real Madrid is always going to be a deal that is of lower value than one between two Premier League clubs, just because of the finances of the respective leagues. I'm not saying that Bellingham is... for me, Bellingham is worth more than Declan Rice, and that's absolutely fine. I haven't got an issue with that. But I think that's why, maybe that's a deal that's been able to be done at a sort of more, what feels like a more reasonable amount. I guess for me, look, I don't have a problem with people being disappointed by the nature of this offer based on what we know. But my point is always this. You're going by a report, and you are taking that report as if it's the word of God. And sometimes these reports are not always 100% accurate. Now, I'm not saying that any journalist goes out there to mislead people. Sometimes the information that you get is not correct or isn't 100% accurate. And if you get the full picture, you might interpret something in a completely different way. So all I am saying to Arsenal fans out there, and what my tweet basically was aimed at, is we might still end up with Declan Rice. We probably will still end up with Declan Rice, in which case, does any of this matter? And in which case, why are you going to spend your summer pulling your hair out and going absolutely crazy about some details that you don't even know 100% are correct? That's kind of my issue with this. Look, we're going to talk Caicedo as well. We're going to do a little bit of Kai Havertz as well before we wrap up. But before we continue on through the show, if I could ask you guys to leave a like on the video, because there's nowhere near enough likes on the board in comparison to how many of you are watching us live right now. Make sure you give Tom's The Gooner Talk TV a subscribe. Make sure you subscribe, of course, to the Highbury squad as well. I'll get the guys to fill you in on how exactly you can do that a little bit later on. But we're going to take a very short pause, and then we're going to talk Moises Caicedo, Kai Havertz, and more. Okay, we are back. Moises Caicedo. Right, this is another interesting one, isn't it? Because we've been having this discussion in our WhatsApp group quite a bit, actually, over the last few days. Is it possible to get Rice and Caicedo? And there's a part of me that's always been like, oh, I don't know. I don't think that this is financially feasible. And the more I'm hearing about what these clubs are looking for in terms of the prices now, the more I'm thinking that this is out of our reach. But Tom, earlier today, we heard that Arsenal had cooled their interest in Moises Caicedo 24 hours after the same journalist reported that Arsenal were preparing a bid for Moises Caicedo. So where do we start with this one? Where do we go with this one?
Mate, I think this is what did it for Arsenal fans today on social media. This was the jump off the boat.
This and Man City sent everyone spinning.
Yeah, it was like, the whole rejected bid kind of plugged Arsenal fans in. The Kai Havertz thing yesterday was another thing, and then honestly, the Caicedo thing has just absolutely ruined people. But I don't think Arsenal have just suddenly pulled out the race. I personally, in my opinion, don't think that that's the case. I think that Arsenal haven't moved on the Caicedo situation for quite some time because A, they're focusing on Declan Rice, and B, they know that Caicedo is open to coming to Arsenal. From my perspective, I think what they're doing is kind of a reverse Mudryk, if you like. I think they're letting Chelsea do a lot of the hard work and then kind of wait and see what Chelsea agree for Caicedo with Brighton, because we're hearing from Matt Law now that Brighton value the guy at 120 million quid, and if that's the case, and if Chelsea end up paying 120 million quid for Caicedo, Arsenal are going to go, okay, yeah, because we ain't going to go and pay 120 million for Caicedo. I think I think that it's probably fair to say that the report that I think Ben Jacobs put it out that Arsenal have cooled interest, but I think that cooling of interest is only because we're pushing, and the resources are very much on the Rice situation, so we're not moving on the Caicedo situation. And I think it's because they might be thinking, well, let's just let Chelsea do the legwork because we know Caicedo is open to a move to Arsenal, and if we just equal whatever fee Chelsea put in, if we think it's a reasonable amount of money to match, then then he just has to pick between the two clubs, and he wants Champions League football, so why wouldn't he come here? So I think that's probably why we're hearing that things have cooled. But I'm really not kind of like in a mood to lose my head over this because, as you said for some time, Harry, whilst I'm hopeful that Arsenal spend a lot of money this winter, and I think they should be, realistically, as we've just discussed with the value of players, like I can't expect Arsenal to spend 120 million each on two players. Like it's just crazy. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I completely
Send
agree.
Agent Trossard in. Come on, do God's work.
Although I don't think Trossard's got many friends left at Brighton after the way he left the club, and he didn't really get. I was watching closely when obviously they basically killed our title hopes at the back end of the season. I didn't really see too many warm embraces between Leandro Trossard and his former teammates, but
the opposite of Zinchenko.
Yeah, exactly. But what do you make of this Caicedo situation? What's your gut telling you? Because again, as I said before, we don't know all of the ins and outs. We're just trying to put the pieces together that we're being fed over the course of this transfer window. Do
you think this is a little bit fan generated, the Caicedo thing, beyond January, in the sense that, this reminds me of Vlahovic. Were we ever serious, or are we serious about Caicedo? That's what I question. And I'm not sure that we have been. Wouldn't we? I find it hard to believe that Arsenal Football Club, if they wanted him, and the asking price was 100 million, but they really wanted him, that the manager wants him, he's not always going to get what he wants. And I think the beef that Arsenal fans have is with the Cronkies. It's like, Arteta's told you he wants this guy, go get the guy. But 120 million. I mean, we're going into crazy universe money in the world in general. So for me, this one is a bit tricky because I don't know how much Arteta wants him. It reminds me of Bissouma as well. Did he ever really want Bissouma? Was that us that just wanted Bissouma?
Tielemans, another one.
Tielemans.
They could have done it if they wanted it, and they haven't.
Yeah,
really
that's where I kind of stand with the Caicedo one. I'm not sure if Arteta really kind of said this. Go all out to get him. But I don't know. He's a great player. I would love him at Arsenal. I actually would like Caicedo more at Arsenal than Rice. But, what do I know?
Can the three of us agree that whether we get Rice or Caicedo or both, we'd be overpaying for them anyway?
Oh, yeah. Like... As Sophie said, if Rice was Italian, you wouldn't be buying Rice for for £100+ million. Is he? But the thing is, like, I don't even know anymore, like, what players are worth. Like, I have no idea what a player's worth anymore. It's like, we signed last summer. We signed Zinchenko for 30 million quid. Is that an amazing bargain all of a sudden, or is actually no? In a realistic world, he is worth about £30 million. Like, it's impossible to know these days. You know what I mean? Like,
you're talking about even Jesus and Zinchenko, like they've won everything other than the Champions League. Sorry, but great deals. Look what we paid for them, and they've won stuff, and they were coached under Pep Guardiola. Now their ages are what, 24 and 25 respectively, I think.
Around about that. I think they're both 25-ish, aren't they?
They're both 25, yeah.
Rice and Bellingham is what, 3-4 years?
He's 19, Bellingham.
Bellingham's 19, but Rice is what, 23?
24.
24.
Yeah.
Right, okay. I don't know. This is going to be a long summer. That's all I can say. And fans are going to go at it. The club are going to disappoint fans. It happens every season. And we have major PTSD after Mudryk. This is where everything is stemming from. This is transfer market PTSD, guys. Brace yourselves. It's going to be a roller coaster ride, and there's nothing anyone can do about it.
Where are you guys on Kai Havertz? I did a show yesterday with Daniel Childs, who Tom knows as well from football.london. I think he tried to put me off of Kai Havertz a little bit, but I still...
Same with me with Jorginho, to be fair.
But I still sort of, once I'd kind of processed what he said and thought about it overnight, I still woke up this morning thinking, no, actually, if the price is right, this is a pretty good deal and one that I'm fully behind. And interestingly, because what happens is, and I'm sure you guys get this as well, is I always get people tweeting me going, oh, well, of course you're going to like Kai Havertz because Arsenal are linked to him, and you wouldn't dare say anything anti-Arsenal. The fact is that yesterday in the morning, before the Kai Havertz story even came out, we did a show and I did my summer transfer wish list, and I put Kai Havertz on that list without knowing what was to come later on in the day. So that wasn't just a reaction to that news. But I'm interested to get you guys' thoughts on Kai Havertz. Is it one where if this price is right, you'll do it? Is it one that we should stay away from? Is it one that we should break the bank for?
Sorry, can we just stop for a minute? You had Kai Havertz on your summer shopping list.
Yep, I did.
Why don't you tell us why?
Because I have rated Kai Havertz for a really long time. And I think he is criminally, what's the right word? He's not used in the right way at Chelsea. I think he's got a lot of talent, a lot of ability. I think he's a really intelligent footballer. I think he's not your out-and-out centre forward, although he is a centre forward. But in our team, I think that fits quite well. And I think that he's a good fit for what we have in terms of our front line. It wouldn't take away focus from Saka, Martinelli, Odegaard. And it would be very similar to what Jesus brings to the side, but only with a slightly different profile. And I just think that because of the situation at Chelsea, where they clearly need to move players on because of FFP, but also because they've got an over-bloated squad, I think that's one we could take advantage of. So,
can I a follow-up question then?
Yeah.
If he was at Bayer Leverkusen right now, Jared Carver put this question out, which I loved earlier today. If Havertz was at Bayer Leverkusen and we were looking at him, would Arsenal fans be excited about that?
I would be.
As in, like, in his last season, or
as in that, he's coming from Chelsea. It's been a disaster. Yes, he scored the winning goal in the Champions League final. Everyone think it's by default because the midfield pretty much won that match. I'm not saying erase his Chelsea career, but let's just play a little bit of the what if game.
I think you can in a way. You say if Arsenal were doing the deal that Chelsea did for Havertz, I think everyone would be over the moon. I think in that moment when Chelsea signed Havertz, it was seen as a massive coup for Chelsea.
It really was.
Because Liverpool were constantly linked with Havertz. It was like, he's going Liverpool. Constantly he's going to Liverpool. And then Chelsea suddenly came in because I think the summer before they had their transfer ban, and Lampard did that whole season where I think that Tammy Abraham was their striker, and they still got I think they still got into the top four. And they signed Havertz, they signed Werner, and everyone was like, wow, Chelsea have done an amazing bit of business there for both. players, by the way. You know, everyone was rating that business of Werner and Havertz as really good business. And then when they had Thomas Tuchel in, you know, to kind of be that the German coach and then take on the 2 German talents and that, it was seen as even better kind of move. So yeah, if it was back then and Arsenal doing that deal, I think I agree with you, Sophie. I think a lot of Arsenal fans would be overjoyed with that. But what I would say is that it's a risk. It's a huge risk of a transfer for Arsenal. And it's all for me on Arteta, that deal like that, because this is going to be Arteta saying that he believes that he can return Kai Havertz to the player that he was promised to be when he left Bayer Leverkusen. And the thing is, I think we have the position that does that. And that's currently what Gabriel Jesus is, playing this false 9 role. I think you slot Kai Havertz into that position. You let Ødegaard feed him, you let Saka feed him, you get all of the emphasis on him in that false 9 role. I think there's a real good chance of it. I also think if you want to rotate Ødegaard out, which we feel at this moment in time that we can't do, and you want to take Ødegaard out for a game and put Havertz as a second striker behind Jesus and let them play together, I think that'd be really interesting to see as well. But the idea of playing Havertz wide, you know, I've seen some people do the mock-up of their teams for next season. Havertz is like a backup to Saka. And I'm like, no, don't repeat what Chelsea just did. Like, you need to play him centrally. You need to give him that freedom to play what he was doing at Bayer Leverkusen, which was kind of playing a hybrid 8-10 role, which at times is it's exactly what Ødegaard does. But also he was given license as a centre forward, as a false 9 at times as well, and he flourished. And also I've been crying out for Arsenal to sign a forward, someone with some verticality and physicality, and he's got that. So I'd quite like it, but it's a huge risk and all on Arteta if it fails.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it is a risk, but I think we're in a place now where, and I'll bring you in on this, Soph, I think we're in a place now where we kind of have to let Mikel Arteta do his thing. You know, we look at the big business that we've done, and I'm not talking about all the transfers. You know, you could talk about transfers like Runarsson and Pablo Mari and Cedric Suarez haven't really worked out. But when you're talking about big money deals that Arsenal have done, with the exception of Fabio Vieira, who, by the way, still could come good, I think most of them have been spot on. And
Lokonga and Nuno were decent money, right?
Nuno was 8 million or something, wasn't he?
Lokonga was 20.
Around 20. Yeah, fine.
22, yeah.
But I just think that Mikel Arteta has shown us over the last 12 months in particular that he's got a way of playing. He's got a style. He's managed to implement it over that period of time. And I just think sometimes we have to remember that we are just fans and that he will understand what is required to play that way better than any of us will. And so you can have an opinion, of course, but there has to be a part of you that places some faith in the management based on the progress we've made of late. Do you not agree with that?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And it's funny because with the Havertz thing since yesterday, I've seen a ton of people like, we're changing how we play. We're changing the system. He's changing everything. He's blowing it up and he's going to start all over again. And I think, you know, I was a doubter, skeptic of him early, as you guys know. And I think he's improved players too. Don't think he was those decisions, the Maris, the Cedrics, the Runarsons, they came early on in his tenure at Arsenal, didn't they? And you could say we were desperate at that time. You know, this team, this whole club was just on its knees, really. And we've reinvented it. He's reinvented it with Adu and the players and the new DNA and the profile and the culture and how we recruit and the type of players we're looking for. It's just more about, it's more than just football. You've seen that with this guy. He's not a normal manager. And sometimes people can't accept someone different or something different. You know, at first everyone was seeing All or Nothing as the light bulb as wacky and the LFC is wacky. And then you see us evolve and progress and move and it all starts to make sense, right? And, you know, at the beginning it was Pep's cone man. And now people see him as, oh, he learned under Pep. So I think we need to kind of look at what's happened over the last 2 years and say, you know what, he's got some stuff right and he's got some stuff wrong. But generally, we're moving in the right direction. Here's one thing I'll leave you with on this subject. Trust the process, year one. For me, you guys know my thing, right? Process, progress. Now I've got a new one for this coming season. Success, right? I'll give you last year. I'll give you the year before. You've got to start delivering even a domestic trophy, something. You got to take the domestic cup seriously. If you're going to build a squad, right? We're never going to win the Champions League. I don't want to hear people say, but we might, Soph. We're not. And if we do, wow, you can play this clip next year and say, you moron, right? But now progress, process needs to go, has gone to progress. Now it needs success. And that's on him 100%, Harry. These are his choices. Now this is his team. And it's down to him and the players to deliver. And, you know, we've been patient. People say, oh, Soph, how much patient could we be? It's been 20 years. No, erase at least 15 of those years in some ways. We're here now. And it's a different club. That was history. And I only use the rearview mirror to check my lipstick. It's about how we're going forward now. And he needs to create success.
I mean, we're really pushed for time, guys. But I did want to take this question, which Tom highlighted in the chat, which I think is a really good one. Tucky followed this up a little bit later on with something along similar lines with regards to Kai Havertz, which was, it's fine to say that you trust Arteta on this deal, but if it goes wrong, will you hold him to account? So let's say, for example, as Tucky puts it in the chat, we don't land Rice, we don't land Caicedo. I think we get one of them. But if we don't, what will we be saying then? Will we hold the club to account? How will you feel if we fail to get these targets? I guess is a way of packaging this question into one.
I know how Tom feels.
For me, it's always about context, because I'll be disappointed if one of Rice or Caicedo isn't an Arsenal player coming in the summer. But if Man City end up buying Rice for 120 million pounds and Chelsea end up buying Caicedo for 120 million pounds, I'm going to look at that and go, well, can I be annoyed that we didn't buy one of those players for 120 million pounds? I'm not. I have an issue with that. Do you know what I mean? But if Chelsea end up agreeing a 90 million pound deal for Caicedo and Man City agree a 100 million pound deal for Rice, and we lose both, I'm going to be fuming. I'm going to be absolutely fuming, because we should, as a club, be looking to spend, that kind of figure in today's market. If Arsenal were a serious club about, with the aim of trying to challenge for a title every season, the aim of trying to go as far as we can in the Champions League, then our priority target has to be secured. One of those two priority targets for that position has to be secured. The only way that for me that I can't, that I wouldn't be jumping on the bandwagon or doing a show with the words embarrassing as the thumbnail is if, as I say, Rice is signed for 120 million by City and Caicedo signed for 120 million odd by Chelsea. But to be honest, I'm starting to lean much more towards you, Harry, with regards, because of the prices we're seeing, that it's going to be one or the other. And if it's one or the other, that's fine. But at the end of that, it's fine, because I think there's other deals that we can do and put money into other positions or other targets. But we have to try and get one of those. And the only reason that we shouldn't be getting one of those is if we, I can't remember who it was, I think it was a Telegraph or the Times, said, if we are blown out of the water by one of Chelsea or City. That's the only reason. So, yeah.
We can get a bit narrow-minded as well, can't we? Like we've heard over the last few months, Rice, Caicedo, Rice, Caicedo, Rice, Caicedo. And it's as though there are no other midfielders.
There aren't, Harry. There are none. There are none out there.
That's what it feels like at times, doesn't it? But yeah,
real quick to jump on the back of that, what Tom said. Martinelli, Ramsdale, Saliba, Saka. You do not re-sign all of that talent, right? Odegaard coming, Benjamin White next, and not arc the circle and build this team that can challenge for a few years to come. I will be highly disappointed and actually maybe even a little bit Greek angry if we don't back this up this summer. And I've defended the owners, and I've found peace with Mikel Arteta as the manager. And I think that if we do not go and strengthen in ways that we can challenge and sustain what we've done, shame on us.
Yeah, and to finish off the show, I completely agree with that. I feel like we've made a lot of progress in the last 18 or so months. I know that ultimately the season ended in a bit of disappointment, but I have never, or not never, but I haven't in a long time felt that connected to an Arsenal side, felt that kind of buzz and excitement. And obviously for me, it was a special season because I was covering the club much closely than I have done in the past. And just to be a part of it was amazing. And that was because I felt really, really engaged with it. I got to do some games under Unai Emery, and we won't go into that again, but I was completely, disconnected at the end of that. It just feels like to me, we talk a lot about the rest of the Premier League, how some of those teams have dropped off, etc., etc. But we got ourselves in front of all those guys now. And if we don't have a summer that allows us to maintain our position, I'm not saying that we're going to run City close, guaranteed, because Champions League football, I think, makes a big difference to us in terms of now having to balance things. And that poses new challenges. But the point I'm trying to make here is that we've taken the biggest step. And it feels like the next step is not a million miles away. And if we fail to address the issues we have in the transfer market to the point where we're taking steps backwards, I am going to hold the club accountable, and I'm going to hold everybody involved accountable. Now, as Tom alluded to earlier on, it's difficult to point the finger at one specific individual. Did Arteta make the right choice? Did Edu negotiate in the best way possible? Did the club sign off on the payment structure that the selling club wanted? There's so many factors here. It's difficult to pinpoint one person and say you're responsible. But as a collective, I'll hold the club accountable for sure. Just quickly, super chat from Tom, who says Havertz, Rice and Odegaard in midfield would make me happy. I think it's a little bit imbalanced, but on paper it looks good.
A little bit.
I'll give you that.
By the way, it's funny how everyone's fallen out of love with Thomas Partey now, isn't it? Dude, just seems surplus to requirements.
So fickle.
Indeed. Guys, thank you so much, because I know this was a really last minute call up. So I really, really appreciate you both taking the time out of your evening to join me. Tom, let people know what you've got coming up, what you've just done, and how people can find your brilliant content.
Yeah, so if you're a little bit skeptical on Kai Havertz, just done a tactical breakdown on him with Drew. Drew Thompson knows his stuff. He sends his best, by the way, to both of you. When we left, he said send them both, and I completely forgot to tell you. So I'm telling you now.
Thank you. He wrote a great article about him 3 years ago. It's really good.
Yeah, he did. It's fantastic. He's put a new one out for 101 Great Goals.
I'll
so
check it out.
Check that out. But yeah, check the tactical breakdown of Kai Havertz out, and of course you can find me every morning at 8 a.m. on the channel, waking up early, doing the grind.
I know I say it every time.
August, September.
I say it every time I speak to Tom. I have no idea how you do it, man.
We did episode 300 the other day, and I realized, wait, that's just one show. We did a new show. It's actually 600 days we've done now.
Jesus. So same to you. How can people find your content, and what have you got coming up?
Yeah, I'm doing a show today, actually, at 8 p.m. UK time, and with Super Carl Campbell, and I think Super Kev Campbell is going to swing in as well. So it's Sophie and the Campbells for dinner, I think, tonight. And yeah, check out the content. Let us know what you think. Did a really good, just some really good stuff coming up. And I'm going to take a break from the summer as well. Need a break. So, but we've got really good stuff coming up, and I'm really excited to share that with everyone soon.
I've been trying to take a break all week, and I think I've done more episodes this week than I've done over the course of the season in any given week. But hey, it is what it is.
Have to take a break before Arsenal come to America. And good luck to Balogun tonight, making his debut in Las Vegas for the United States against Mexico. Let me tell you, if you've never seen a USA-Mexico game, please try and watch it if you can. It's one of the greatest rivalries in all of football, especially it being a border rivalry as well. So check out Balogun, and of course, Matt Turner will be in goal. And it should be exciting stuff.
That's going to be tasty. I'll try and stay up for it. Guys, don't forget to leave a like on your way out. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. I think we're around about 40 odd away from hitting 27,000. I really want to get there so we can start pushing towards the 30k mark here on YouTube. So do that for me. I'd really, really appreciate it. Follow the guys, and we'll be back possibly tomorrow, depending on how the news pans out, with more content. Until then, take care of yourselves and have a great evening. All the best. Goodbye.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.